I think that we always need to be looking for those opportunities to give and to be that person for someone or to be something to someone, even if you don't know them. It's not hard to be kind.
That's exactly right.
And you're sowing seeds when you're kind, and that in itself is a legacy as well.
Without Fear of Her Future podcast is for women who are passionately pursuing financial freedom, using multiple streams of income and real estate to accomplish their goals. We are here to empower you to be brave, dream big, and design a life that you love. I'm your co-host, Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and author of the book, Without Fear of Her Future.
And I'm Melissa Baker, a real estate investor and fitness coach specializing in turning properties from drab to fab. I'm here to help motivate and inspire you to build your dream life because, girl, you deserve it. Today, we are talking about something that's close to our hearts, legacy building, passing down real estate wisdom.
That's right. We often think about real estate in terms of transactions and investment, but there's a deeper narrative we really want to explore today. Real estate has the power to be a legacy, a story told through homes and properties that stand the test of time.
It's about more than just financial gains. It's about the values, memories, and impact we leave for the generations to come. So grab your favorite cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and let's embark on this meaningful conversation about leaving and weaving a lasting legacy through real estate. So, Tresa, to get started, really, I want to talk about a legacy and what it is. And as I was looking at this topic for us to talk about today, I looked up really what it means to leave a legacy. And what it is, I love this, what they said is leaving a legacy. Your legacy, it's the total of your life experiences, beliefs, values, and traditions passed down from generation to generation. So it's everything. I know we're going to focus.
That.
Yeah, we're going to focus on real estate, but it is literally everything that we're passing down. It's not just a business or wealth or poverty or this or that. It's the total of my life. And that makes me want to really make it matter.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the legacy that your parents left you. Let's start there with what
this is a fun subject for me because my mother, and then I had an amazing stepdad that just loved me. And you talk about the legacy that they left. Now, first of all, they did leave. I did inherit their home. So that was or the real estate. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I also want to talk about all the other things that you just mentioned. First of all, they loved each other. And what a legacy to see the way that they loved and respected and honored one another. They were both very hard workers. He was a police sergeant for 30 years, and my mother was a police dispatcher. That's where they met. And the work ethic, and he was also an entrepreneur. He not only was a police officer, but he had a trailer park, so some real estate. He owned a restaurant. As a matter of fact, my very first job was working in that restaurant. And so such a legacy of the things that they left, of love and hard work and respect. And then, of course, a property that literally, was a game changer for me. So when they both passed away, I have a stepbrother, and they left me the home that they had lived in out on the lake and on Lake Palestine. And then they left him all of their cash, and they talked that over with us. And we're like, yeah, you take all the cash that they had, and I will take the home. And, that is the way that I was able to buy. I lived in that house for a while, eventually sold it. I didn't have this real estate education then. If I had, I would have done things so much differently, but it still was what enabled me to build my first house. And, then whenever I was ready to go into real estate, I was able to sell that house and make money. So what we leave behind for our kids, obviously with finances, and, they didn't leave me with a lot of they left us with zero bills. Right. They took care of everything. And that's the exact same thing that I want to do for my family. They had already literally thought everything through and took care of all the things before they passed away.
What a beautiful story. And what a great legacy to have all those little pieces that you can look back on and see what they left you and what is a part of you that you know you're going to pass on down.
Absolutely.
And it's
because when my dad died, my real dad, it was totally the opposite.
Oh.
And so he had not done any of the things. He had a ton of debt, and I was the one that had to take care of all of that. So that contrast makes me know, that I would want our listeners to hear is don't do that to your children. It's hard enough when you lose someone going through all of that, but when you have to be the one that takes care of all the stuff, just don't do that to your kids. Make sure that you've taken care of all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny how kind of not exactly parallel, but similar. Our parents' histories. My parents are still together and they're still with us. Both of my parents, they've been married for about 56 years now. And you talk about him owning a campground. So I grew up on a little campground in New Mexico. My dad bought with a friend of his. So real estate has kind of been in my family for a while.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it. My first job was cleaning bathrooms on that campground when I was about 10 or 12 years old. So, the work ethic that you talked about, those things that my dad, really instilled in me from an early age. My parents later in life, when I was in college, my mom became a realtor and they started investing in properties. And I say they kind of accidentally became investors because they bought a house for my sister to live in, but it was a duplex and it was already cash flowing. So my dad decided, well, I'll just keep that one. It's cash flowing. I'll buy a different one for, my sister to live in. So that's kind of how they started, and they just acquired properties through the years. But I look at the legacy that they've built for my sister and I, and from a business perspective, that's what they've done. And my dad is an accountant by trade, so really smart business sense that he has. My mom, it's her faith. I am the product of a praying mama, and I tell you, she probably spent some nights on her knees, and praise God, she did. But I look at
you turned out pretty good.
Well, thank you. But I look at that as something that when you look at the whole of what your parents leave, the homes that they're leaving, the real estate investments that they're leaving to my sister and I, it's great. Their retirement accounts, their whatever else they have, the financial, but what my sister and I hold near and dear are the traits that we see in my parents, and their love, like you were talking about, the love that your mom and stepdad have for each other. That's what we see in my parents and their marriage and what they brought to our family. So,
man, I love that. And you are so right. So many times when we talk about legacy, we think about money, we think about real estate, but there is all of those other aspects that you're talking about. Right. Something that we teach here at the Women's Real Estate Investors Network that my parents didn't leave me, and I didn't leave it to my kiddos. And that's like a financial education.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have a financial education. And to be honest, my parents were doing some really smart things back then, but they weren't really talking to us about it, And so then I was a single mom, barely making it. I didn't have a financial education, and I didn't talk to my kiddos about it. And if anybody's familiar with our story, my 3 sons became real estate investors, and they are the ones that, begin to give me the financial education and fill me with specialized knowledge and all of those things. But now I have 10 grandkiddos, and we are constantly talking about specialized knowledge and investing and all those kinds of conversations that I didn't grow up with, that my kids didn't grow up with. My grandkids will definitely grow up with that, so that because they don't teach that in school.
No.
Nobody's teaching those things. Now the thing that I taught my kids was go to school, go to college, get a great job, work hard, and retire someday. But boy, if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would certainly say some different things.
Well, and that's what we were taught, because that's kind of how our parents, I feel like my dad being an entrepreneur, he was a little out of the norm, with what he did, because he had a job. He was an accountant for a big company when I was really, really young, and that didn't work for our family. And he realized that when I was about 6 years old, and he said, I'm changing this. I'm changing the narrative of our family. And he left that job, sold the house, and Actually, you know what? I take that back. They didn't sell that house. They rented it out.
Well, there you go.
So they were doing the real estate
Yes,
stuff
they
long
were.
before I give them credit for it. But you're right. Your specialized knowledge, that you've learned that through the boys that are being passed down to their children, and it's going to continue going because this is the legacy that you guys have built. But what about your faith? You've been a teacher in the church and on stages where you have preached the good news, and that's being
and I
passed
have
down.
to say, first of all, that started with my mama, kind of like what you said. My mother was just a powerhouse prayer warrior. I mean, she lived it, and she didn't just talk it, but she walked the walk. Yeah. I don't think she ever had I don't think there was anybody that didn't like my mother. She was just, she was just that. And so and she was so filled with joy. I even think she passed down her joy and her positive attitude. Yeah. And then I do believe that was part of, I passed that down to my kiddos. So really, when you're talking about leaving a legacy, it's everything. Mm-hmm. If we are filled with anger, if we're filled with fear, we pass that down. Yes. I mean, I know families, as a matter of fact, I know a family that fear has just been passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. So we have to be so careful. I am so grateful for my mother's faith. And then I was able not only to pass that on to my kids, but I knew that as a young girl that I was called to preach the gospel and did that in the church and in all that. But now I get to share the gospel through the Women's Real Estate Investors Network to people that may never come into a church, but they may be interested in learning about real estate, but they're also going to get to learn a little bit about Jesus.
And by doing that, you're not only changing the legacy in your own family, but you're changing the legacy that's going to be left to so many other families, because there's so many that are taking that are being saved, that are, and taking that faith.
Oh, no, that is the most rewarding thing about what I do.
Another aspect that I haven't mentioned is mindset and personal development. Woo. I can't say that that's something that I really grew up on, in the sense that we have it today, because I feel like there's so much available to us and we know so much more now. But I do remember having to write some kind of positive living or positive thinking papers for some kind of competition. My dad was involved in an organization and they had a scholarship program, and whoever won, they had to give a speech about positive thinking. And I remember I remember my dad starting to instill that in me pretty young. The personal development, though, it really wasn't something I was really aware of until my adult life, when I became an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And you have to grow. You have to, that mindset and personal development and that grow and keep moving forward. And I definitely want to pass that on to my kids.
Oh, me too. And that was another game changer, because I had the faith background. I had the hard work ethic background. But what was missing for me until I became a real estate investor and began to understand the power of changing your mindset and personal development, that just takes you to another whole level. And becoming, listening to the podcast and reading the self-help books just opened my mind wide open, that I didn't realize I had that much control over the way I thought, the way that I could, what was possible. And so, I love to talk about mindset and just all of that, because personal development and being accountable to ourselves and doing the hard things, that just takes our whole life to another whole level.
My favorite mindset story I think that you have told is your monkey bar story. It really is, because you don't realize how powerful your mind is until you have an experience like that.
Yeah.
You're
talking about when I couldn't
do it.
I couldn't do it.
For listeners who maybe haven't heard the story from previous episodes, Tresa was training for a
mud run,
and she couldn't do the monkey bars.
I knew that might be one of the obstacles, is where you have to,
but you went home. And
so I couldn't. Now listen to this.
It
was literally, I was practicing in a schoolyard behind my house, so I could touch the ground. I mean, it was literally like maybe 4 inches, because it was like little kids. However, I would hold my legs up And I just had this fear. I literally could not take one hand off to grab the other bar of the monkey bar. I don't know why. I was killing everything else. I could do all the other obstacles that I was practicing. I could not conquer those the monkey bars. And so I remember just lying in bed that night, and I was literally just seeing myself doing it, like going across, just letting go and going across that. And so at 5 o'clock that next morning, when my alarm went off, it was still pitch dark outside. And I put on my tennis shoes and I went out my backyard and went over to that little school and grabbed hold of the monkey bars, and I just did it. I'd never been able to do it, but because I saw it in my head first, then I was able.
But that's something you learned through your personal development and your mindset training, which, is, that's powerful.
Yeah, it is. It really shows us that anything is possible when we set our mind to it.
Absolutely.
If we just begin to see it.
Yes.
Even the Bible talks about, without a vision, we perish.
Yeah.
And
cast your vision.
Yes. Start seeing it, saying it, living it. And then before you know it, you'll be doing it.
That's right. That's right. That's something that I think is a big one to pass down, especially to this next generation. There seems to be so much coming against them in so many ways. And I know the enemy is just trying to, worm his way in, and that personal development. But Tresa, let's do something that probably hadn't been done when we were kids.
What's that?
Let's talk about money. Did you talk about money in your home?
We talked about how we didn't have enough money. Anytime you wanted something, it was like, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the money for that. So no, it kind of goes back to that financial education or specialized knowledge. We didn't know about how to create wealth or how to be smart with our money. We had that consumer mindset, didn't know about building wealth,
which is almost a scarcity mindset.
It is a scarcity mindset.
Yeah. If you don't have enough, that's what you think about, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's something that I would love to pass down for the financial, what you mentioned a little bit earlier, financial education, to be something that my girls take into their families and teach their children about that. Because if you're not aware of the problem, it can't be fixed. And if there's a financial problem, it needs to be talked about and fixed. But even if there's not, talking about it, I think makes it more, it's almost like you visualizing the monkey bars. Let's visualize how we're going to make some money. Let's visualize the plans we have for our businesses, for our families, for our faith, for where we want to be.
Yes. It's about our belief system. And we have to rebuild, most of us need to rebuild a belief system around money. We tend to think that money is for others, for the elite, for the lucky ones that, we need, like, if you're listening, I just want to challenge that thought process. Money can be for you. Money should be for you. God wants us to be blessed. He constantly talks about how we should take care of the orphans and the widows and the less fortunate. How do we do that if we're all broke?
Right.
So I believe God, we are blessed.
Build the church.
That's right.
How do we build the church if we're all
We are
broke?
blessed to be a blessing. And when we get a hold of that why not me? Why can't I be the one that's giving instead of being the one that needs somebody to give to on a regular basis? I mean, So let's challenge ourselves in that realm.
Yeah.
Study the scriptures. What does it really say about money? And if we look at how God blessed, he blessed his people. David, even Job, who lost everything, ended up with twice as much as he had before. Moses, and he so that they could make impact and do amazing things. And that's what it is all about.
It absolutely is. So, Tresa, I want to shift just a little bit, going back to real estate, since we're here because of real estate. So let's go back into that. What advice would you give to women who are just starting their journey in real estate and are eager to build a lasting legacy?
Oh my goodness. I want to tell you that it's possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. My story.
You didn't start at 20.
No, I started at 50 years old. I was making $65,000 a year. And because my sons had learned the special education of investing in real estate and began to share that with me and teach me, it was such a game changer. And so I want to, if you're listening and you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck, I don't care what your financial situation is right now, you can change it. And it does start by getting some specialized knowledge. Obviously, come through one of our master classes and Without Fear of Her Future. And it's a 7-day program that can literally change your mindset. It will give you the specialized knowledge. And, and then if you want to continue in the journey with us, join the Women's Real Estate Investors Network. And Melissa, we're seeing every day how women's lives are being transformed. They're being able to quit their jobs. They're getting out of debt. They have a true retirement plan. Ladies becoming woman-heirs, we call them, when you profit $1 million. Even if it's not through the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, go somewhere and get the specialized knowledge. You do. This is what I want you to hear me say. You do not have to stay stuck. You do not have to live in fear. You can live without fear of your future. And it all comes from getting that financial education.
Right. And, for some of the listeners who may not know, I'm a product of that master class. I saw an advertisement 3 years ago and decided, why not? Made the decision and jumped into the master class, joined the network, and here I am today.
I know. I love it.
Yes, yes. God has opened so many doors in so many different ways that has changed my family, in so many ways. And it's been such a blessing, and I love being able to give back to this community, in this way. So let's talk about living a legacy.
Ooh, I love this. Living a legacy is, we talked about my parents dying. They left me a legacy. Leaving a legacy is after you die. What do you leave behind? And again, it's not just about money and property. It's about joy or faith or all the things that you leave behind. But you ask about living a legacy. That's like living it while we're still living.
Right.
And living joy, living peace, living our faith out, living financially free. Again, the Word of God says that, He gives us all things richly to enjoy. I think so many times, especially as believers, we think that we should never ask for more than just enough to get by. Let me pay the electric bill. Just let me pay the bill.
Living on the manna. Isn't that what you call it?
Exactly. Exactly. But there's a promised land that God wants us to walk into where everything is abundant. Right. And lavished upon us, and we can enjoy that and share it with others. And so, again, it's a mindset. I want to live a legacy of joy and fun and peace. And then whenever it's my time, I want to leave that legacy. I want to leave my faith and all of my properties and all the things to my kids and my 10 grandkids.
Well, and not only those things, but it's leaving that legacy for your family, but it's also your impact on the community. Yes. There's a legacy within the community as well. And I feel like with the Women's Real Estate Investors Network, you have done such a great job of creating a legacy within the network and for women to pass down into their communities, because you do talk about giving back to the communities. And I know we've had several guests on here who have talked about what they do in their communities.
Starting nonprofits.
Yes.
Because they can. But everybody is not going to have a network of, thousands of women, but you can still impact your community. And Melissa, you do that every day. You are, what I see with you, you are a friend to many. And you just sow life and you sow joy, and you're always there for your friends. And that is sowing into your community. That's making an impact and so that's it. It's just, who are your people around you? Not just your family, but maybe at your church or in your neighborhood, or who can you sow words of hope into when they're down, sharing a scripture with them? All of that matters, what we impart into people. That is truly living a legacy.
Oh, well, thank you. I think that we always need to be looking for those opportunities to give and to be that person for someone, or to be something to someone, even if you don't know them. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to be kind.
That's exactly right.
And you're sowing seeds when you're kind, and that in itself is a legacy as well. You just never know whose life you're going to touch.
Yeah. And this conversation reminds me, I know that at Rain Live this past year that Ed Milet was there, and that was especially special to you. Let's talk about that. What was so special about his talk, and what did he say?
You know, that he so emphasized being the one, you know, to make the change in your family. Be the one. In, 2, 3, 4 generations from now, my great-great-great-grandchildren, I want them to remember my name, not because I was dead broke,
Yeah.
not because my bones lie in a cemetery over there and we go visit her every once in a while. I want them to remember me because I made a difference for our family. That I was the one that made the change. I was the one that brought us out of poverty or kept us out of poverty or carried on the legacy that was given to me and passed it on down. I want my parents' names to be remembered with my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren.
Yes, that's so good.
Be the one.
Be the one that changes everything.
Absolutely.
And anybody can do it. My mother was the one. She... both of her parents were alcoholics. She was surrounded by alcoholism. She married my dad, who was an alcoholic, but my mother was the one that broke that and said, "Nope, not on my watch.
Yeah.
We're breaking this cycle." And now my kids, so I got the benefit. I was the first one to get the benefit of that. Then my kids were not raised around alcohol and alcoholics, and now my grandkids are not. So my mother was the one, and that she shared her faith. And so whatever it is, it can be about finances. It could be about maybe some addictions, or it can be about fear that's been running rampant in your family. Anything that you decide to say, hey, I am going to be the one that changes the look of our family.
Yes.
The next
Yes.
generation is going to be different because I'm going to make some decisions to stand.
Yes, it was so powerful. So ladies, if you're listening, what is the thing in your family or in your life that maybe you don't want it to be your legacy? Be the one that changes it. We have that power. We have that. It's about making that decision and taking that step. And I tell you what, we have the ability to do that because God created us all for greatness. And it's within all of us. We just have to take that step.
Gosh, so good. So good. So yes, this is Melissa and I saying, hey, be the one to not only leave a legacy, but live a legacy.
Yes, yes.
And subscribe now to the Without Fear of Her Future podcast for new episode alerts. Imagine waking up excited each morning, knowing your family is financially secure. Everyday women like you are making life-changing profits through real estate. So join our masterclass for a life-altering transformation. With a near-perfect rating and over 150,000 transformed lives, this is your golden ticket to rapid financial freedom. Dare to dream bigger and seize control of your future. So click the link in the episode description to register for the next masterclass now.
Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and Tresa Todd, I'm Melissa Baker, encouraging you to be brave and dream big.